Hello, everyone. Welcome once again. It is I, Kevin, here this time, continuing on with our Steamroller, Steam Train, Mack truck coverage of E3 to discuss Square Enix. And because this is coming out on a Wednesday, when you typically hear the dulcet tones of a certain somebody, I decided to bring him along with me to help digest what Square Enix downloaded for us the other day. Good morning, Seth.
Hey yo, so you said Steamroller. We have a local food truck called Steamroller. I actually know it might be like Steamroller Bagels or something, but they make really good food. So if you're ever in Central Ohio, look up Steamroller Bagels. I
Are
also
they,
could
are they
have it.
flat? Because Steamroller?
I don't know. I could have the name wrong too, but that's what it made me think of.
Fair enough. Well, we are here. We sat through the entire Square Enix presentation. At least I did. Seth might have skipped around a bit. I don't know. We'll find out.
I mostly sat through it.
Okay. Well, there you
I
go.
skipped the Final Fantasy 14 stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I wish I did the same, but I was watching live at the time. So,
My
um,
cat just sneezed. I don't know if I've ever heard that.
we'll find out if our listeners heard that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do things the same way we've done the other couple that I've been on, and we're just gonna run through all the different announcements, not necessarily in the order that they were announced in, but we're gonna go through the different titles that were shown, give you any information we got on it, and then if we're so inclined, our thoughts and excitement levels of something, if it tickles our fancy. Square Enix did announce a lot
Oh yeah.
during this conference, which is a radical change from last year's. Because if you recall, last year's was like I don't know, 10, 15 minute video uploaded to YouTube. It wasn't even like a live thing, and it was horrible.
Hmm.
This year, they showed a lot more. They spent a lot more time talking, sometimes a little too much time talking, I think. But we'll get to that later. So let's dive into what we're here for, and that is the games. We're going to start with what they gave us last, because this was the real reason I think anybody tuned into the conference in the first place. Was Crystal Dynamics' long-awaited Avengers game was unveiled for us finally. Will be arriving May 15th, 2020. You'll be able to play as 5 characters from the start: Cap, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Iron Man. Warning for those at home: get over yourselves. They do not look like they do in the movies. They were not given, their likenesses, which I'm sure probably has something to do with just them being able to
Well,
sue and not
they're
agreeing to it.
also they're not those actors aren't portraying the characters in the game.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean, what? So why would it look like? I did say I didn't read. I've decided with this. I'm on board with Avengers,
Mhm.
and I didn't read anything negative about it, but I saw a lot of negative headlines about it. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so I really I'm not gonna engage with negative stuff at this point. I mean, all we've seen is 5 minutes of gameplay or something. Not even gameplay.
Not even gameplay. No, that's
And,
true. And it does have an all-star voice acting cast,
mhm.
headlined by Troy Baker, Nolan North. Um, the game will be supported and continue to release content over multiple years, in air quotes, they said. We'll have 4-player online co-op, and every new character and map that the game will add later on will be free. They made a point to say no random loot boxes or pay-to-win scenarios, coming to Xbox, PS4, PC, Stadia. Yeah, everything they showed was pretty much cinematic. The game apparently overview is that the Avengers mess up, and people kind of blame the Avengers for what happened, and ultimately the death of Captain America, which is given away in the trailer, which that surprised me a little bit that would be unveiled so early.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks decent. I think I'm my expectations are a little tempered. I think I was, and this is just me, I was expecting something to be more like Uncharted. Like, I don't know why. Like, I just always
Hmm.
imagined that if it was going to be an adventure game, at least the story mode would be something like that
Okay.
versus kind of what we saw a little bit. And yeah, the character models were okay. I think the reason we're seeing all those negative headlines a little bit is because I really think people were expecting it to be like all in. Like, they spent all their money, all their time to make this the best thing ever because the hype level was there. And I think
Yeah.
if you were expecting that, you might have been let down just a little bit. I don't have a problem with the way the characters look, other than I will say Thor, for some reason, just looked really bad to me. I think it's just because Crystal Dynamics doesn't always do a great job with textures.
Okay.
So Thor's beard and his hair look to be really kind of just almost Lego like they were just snapped onto his face, and that took me out of it a little bit. But I'm excited. We saw that already. They were teasing Hank Pym, Ant-Man. At the end of that, they showed like him would be released, so it's good to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I liked pretty much everything about the reveal. The other than obviously you would like to see gameplay, but the game doesn't come out till May.
Right.
So you know, there's plenty of time for that. There's time for them to fix, you know, change character models even. I liked, uh, you know, my knowledge. I'm not really a comic book fan, but I've watched all the MCU and I've read some comics here and there and movies and shows and whatnot. But it played with the average MCU fans' knowledge, you know, and um, I think they're expecting you're coming to this game with a base knowledge of the MCU, not
Definitely.
necessarily a base knowledge of, you know, where Thor has been in his comic book lifetime. But if you know at least the core origin from MCU, I mean, I think this game's for you. Also, I'll say my one friend that I play Apex with and have played Destiny with for years and whatnot. I sent him the trailer to this, and this will be our game of 2020. I
There
mean,
you
this
go.
is essentially Avengers Destiny. At least that's what the pitch is to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
you're up to 4-player co-op. Choose your Marvel hero and go out and wreck shop. So I'm excited for it. Obviously, it could be, you know, who knows? It could be great, could be not great. But I mean, I have to imagine it'll be a certain level of quality. And I do think the comment of supporting it over multiple years is interesting because, I mean, that's great, but it's coming out in May, and we're going to have 2 brand new consoles by November of next year. You know, is this, you know, there's been a lot of speculation as to what cross generational means and backwards compatibility. You know, this is one of the games that I pre-ordered
Right.
already. You know, will my disc work in my PS5? Or, you know, I don't know. Or there aren't a ton of games that I'm still playing 6 months later, so who knows? You know, it's not like that matters a ton.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see the cross generation of this. And I love the cast. I don't actually know. I was just looking up Travis Willingham, who's Thor. He's been in a lot of animated things, a lot of video games, and a lot of some Marvel animated things. He's also in this. Where did that go? Elena of Avalor. As
Oh,
a
sure.
parent of girls yourself, you probably know
Yep.
what Elena of Avalor is, and a lover of Disney.
Of course.
So he's been he was King Roland in that.
Okay.
And then a number of he's in Knack too. Okay. But he's been in a lot of different things as a voice actor. Really, for someone, I mean, I haven't heard of him, but he was in Guardians of the Galaxy TV series as Thor. So familiar with the character. I don't know who the let's see, Thor, Bruce Banner. Who's the other guy? Oh, Captain America. Duh.
Yeah.
I don't know who that actor is. Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not
somebody.
familiar with him at
I
all.
missed the name, but love Troy Baker. Love Lauren Bailey, Nolan North. You know, the cast is great, and yeah, I can't wait for you know, that game's probably at the top of my list at this point.
I'm probably up there with you for the most part.
My biggest disappointment is that it's not coming out till May of 2020.
Yeah,
which
sure.
Whatever.
Another year away when you think of it that way.
Yeah.
So next up was another game that people have been waiting much longer than Seth and I will wait for the Avengers game, and that is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yes, it's still episodic, just in case you're wondering. The first installment, it'll ship on March 3rd. Will include the Midgard portion of the original game, which has been expanded. It'll take up to 2 Blu-ray discs, but they haven't decided that. It's not finalized yet, but they're saying it's going to be that big. They talked quite
Is
a bit about.
the
Yep.
2 Blu-ray discs just for this first episode?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
jeez. I took from it that the 2 Blu-ray discs was like, this is Blu-ray disc number 1, and then later on will be Blu-ray disc number 2. No, this
Nope.
is
It's going to be that big. They
jeez.
talked quite a bit about how the battle system will work. They showed a massive gameplay demo that, for me, went on a little too long. Just
I
that
did.
one boss fight was like 15 minutes.
Yep.
Um, I did play the original Final Fantasy VII. I have been interested in what this was going to look like for a long time, but I will retract just a little bit of excitement. The game looks absolutely stunning. I will say that for sure. It looks like there's way too much going on at one moment, between juggling between two different characters, the hack and slash combat built in, plus the ability to cast spells and abilities and stuff. I'm not sure I'll be able to handle that at my age of being able to flip and do all those things. It's definitely inspired by the combat in Kingdom Hearts. However, in Kingdom Hearts, you only control one character. You're not flipping between multiple in the same battle. So yeah, it definitely seems possibly a little too advanced for me. And I don't know if I can take a game that's going to be this long. If part 1 is 2 discs, which we've never seen, to my knowledge, in this gen,
No.
anything released on multiple discs, this looks insane. But I will say once again, it looks absolutely stunning, and I am very excited for people who have been waiting and pumped for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I've said it many times. I've never played a Final Fantasy game. Never played Final Fantasy VII, obviously. I've thought about it over the years, and I've not been that interested in the remake, but this made me interested in it.
Yeah.
The game, I mean, like you said, it looks awesome. I love the combat system. There is a lot going on. I'm hoping, once you get into it, that it just makes more sense. I was even wondering, as they're bouncing back and forth between the two people, whether I almost thought they were going to announce like a co-op campaign or
That's
something.
what I thought almost, yeah.
Because it seemed like that would fit. Knowing nothing about the game, because I don't know anything about it, but I love the combat system. So you said it's inspired by Kingdom Hearts.
I mean, the combat looks very similar.
Basically is that how Kingdom Hearts goes? You hack and slash for a bit, you build up a meter, and then
Yep, you have special abilities. You can transform your weapon. You can cast spells, and it's all done like on the fly as you go.
Okay.
The only thing that was different is just the toggling of characters that isn't done in Kingdom Hearts. You just play as Sora or as Roxas, that one character, and your other characters are helping you, but you don't directly control them, saying, "Hey, Donald, I want you to do this. Goofy, I want you to do that," like you do in this one. You just actually become that character and set up your next move. But yeah, the hack and slash aspect is very much what Kingdom Hearts does.
Okay. So I like the real time. One thing that I've discovered over this generation is that traditional JRPGs just aren't for me, where you're picking from a menu when to attack, when to defend, whatever. That's just not, I don't want to spend my time playing a game doing that. I want to feel like I'm in control of a character. And this game seems like it's a really good balance between fighting and then choosing things from a menu and being tactical. One of my favorite games of the generation is Transistor.
Sure.
And that, not really a similar battle system to this, but you can fight in real time, and then occasionally you have a power to slow down time and plan out all your moves. It's not exactly the same, obviously, as this, but this reminded me a little bit of that. And yeah, so this is the first time I've really been interested in a Final Fantasy game, and I don't know anything about this, so I'm excited for it. So,
sold at face value. That's good.
Yeah. I did with this, this was what opened the show, and so had some presentation notes about what was going on. I really like seeing the creators, and Nintendo does a great job of this too. Whoever's the lead creator of a game comes out and talks. The good thing about Nintendo with their directs is that as someone is speaking in Japanese, the voiceover in English is happening at the same time.
Yes.
Where this, it was like, okay, I'm going to talk in Japanese. I'm going to translate it. Then this other guy comes out and says something, and then that's translated to the first guy, and it just, um, it's fine. It's great, but if you're looking at a presentation, it's like, all right, you know, I don't need to see this.
Mm-hmm.
Show me the creator in a pre-recorded video
Yes, play that segment. Yep.
with it dubbed over. I like seeing who's creating the game, but it's like, all right, just get me back into the gameplay or get me back into something rather than watching people jabber.
Yeah.
I also loved that they kept the crowd sounds into the trailers.
Yeah.
That was a big part of the excitement of especially Final Fantasy VII and Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. So those were my main like of the presentation quality kind of notes
Sure.
for the entire thing.
Sure. Next up, continue on some Final Fantasy news. Final Fantasy VIII is getting remastered. It'll be out on PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and PC this year, 2019. They didn't give a date. This one, a little surprising. So I know, Seth, you're not the Final Fantasy guy, but this one, supposedly years ago, they lost the source code for this game. So I find it interesting that somehow they had to have found something, because this definitely wasn't built from the ground up, based on what we're seeing at all. Like it is a remaster in the, I don't want it to sound too derogatory, but the lowest sense of the word, where this looks slightly better than it did then. Like it's not a full, current gen 1080p. It looks like a remaster of an old game, a very old game, almost like PS2 to PS3, I would say, versus anything. But it is coming out, so that's kind of interesting.
Final Fantasy VIII, that was still on PS1,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This, well, I mean, that came toward the end of the show, but I have a little notation on my list here. If I don't care about something, I just wrote IDC,
Mhm.
and there were about 12 announcements that I had that written on. Although with Final Fantasy VIII specifically, I know that people have been asking for that for a long time, and that's cool. Just because I don't care about it doesn't mean.
Plus Gunblades. He has a sword that's also a gun. That was like the first time that was done. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
That's probably the most unique thing about that game.
But you still have to choose from a menu.
Yes.
Attack.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
You can't just control the sword gun.
No, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be for the remake they will do in 20, 25 years once they're done with Final Fantasy VII. So moving on to some of those announcements that I know Seth isn't going to care about. Romancing Saga 3 is finally leaving Japan. It was a classic SNES, role-playing game. It's getting a remake with original pixel art and everything. No, I'm not saying that word. It is coming to PS4, Vita, Switch, PC, Xbox One, iOS, and Android. So all of the things are getting this. They didn't give a date. They just said soon. So I'm not sure if anything was clarified after the fact, but that's there. As well as Saga Scarlet Grace is also leaving Japan, which is the latest in the series. Came out in Japan on Vita a couple years ago, but now it's finally coming to the West, and they're bringing it to Switch, PS4, Steam, iOS, and Android. No Xbox love on this one, which is fun. Yeah, not much to say about them. They're just older, traditional JRPG experiences. The ones that Seth has already directly said aren't his cup of tea. And for me, it depends. Something like Octopath Traveler grabbed my attention, but I can't play a lot of these experiences, especially close to each other anymore.
Yeah, Octopath is last year between Octopath and Persona 5 were the two games, and both games I recognize are really good. But I also recognize that they were just not. I just can't do them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just too long and too. Like I said, when I play a video game, I want to run around and feel like I have more player agency instead of choosing from a menu.
Sure, that's completely fair. Next announcement. This is one I was interested in, and this was a complete surprise one. Outriders is a new shooter from People Can Fly, coming summer 2020. It's a 1 to 3 player cooperative shooter from the makers of Gears of War Judgment. Square Enix calls it a journey across a dark and desperate sci-fi world in search of the source of a mysterious signal. They'll talk more about the game this winter, coming to Xbox One, PS4, and PC. This one looked really cool. I don't know what to say about it, really. It looks like a lot of good gunplay. And if it's done by the Gears of War, it has a very distinct feel to it, but it also appears to have some sort of magic or ability aspect to it as well.
Yeah, this is one of the games on my short list here of games that looked interesting. We don't know really anything about it.
No,
I've never played the game Mad Max, and I'm not even sure I've ever actually seen a movie of Mad Max, but this gave me Mad Max vibes.
sure.
Um, and you know, third person action adventure shooter with gears. You know, I like the Gears of War game. I haven't played any since Gears 2, but I assume they're all pretty similar. Um, yeah, looks promising. Although it's another post-apocalyptic shooter game, you know.
That is true. But hey, I think that's the first one announced for 2020. All the other ones are coming out this year or have come out this year. So again,
Okay.
Gears of War 5 will be out this year. So
I mean, technically, Avengers, Marvel's
no,
Avengers is pretty post-apocalyptic.
that's true. That's true. That's fair. But no, it does look really cool. It's good to see. It was good to see something different from Square
Yeah,
because this presentation was very much JRPG centric, which is
yeah,
fine. That's their bread and butter. I get that. That's like, you know, I was gonna say EA, but EA actually does other things. I'd say it'd be like EA doing something non-sports, but no, they do that all the time.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Square Enix is known for JRPGs,
You
so it
like
makes
EA
sense.
doing something good?
Ooh,
That's just a joke.
but not
I'm
really.
looking forward to signing on with EA Access here in a month. So
Well, that's true. That's true. You're gonna have fun. Well, yeah, I can't wait to see what you think about some of these games you haven't experienced yet. Once you get your hands on them, it'll be fun. Um, so moving on with some more JRPGs, Aninaki will be available August 22nd this year. It's the latest from Tokyo RPG Factory, who made I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere.
mm,
Looks pretty cool, but once again, looks like I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere. So,
yeah.
you know,
Setsuna, I loved up until I got to a point that I couldn't progress anymore, and I think I should have spent more time building up some of my characters. But by the time I got to this boss fight,
yeah,
I was like, I don't feel like going back, and
grinding.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of the major down points with JRPGs now is number one, they're just, I mean, they're so long, which is great because I like a long gaming
oh yeah,
experience. That's on the record. But when you have to just do nothing simply to get strong enough, that's what takes me out of the experience, I think, a little bit.
Yep.
Speaking of being taken out of experience, in the middle, as pretty much every developer has done this E3, we need to talk about mobile games, and Square Enix is not exempt from that. So, War of the Visions is a new follow-up from the mobile game Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. It is now in development. They showed not a lengthy trailer, but they did show quite a bit on that, showing that they're not shying away from their mobile experience. I do find it funny that they're not discontinuing support of the old one, but instead we're going to make another one and have them run concurrently, which is a little weird because
yeah.
they seem to be similar.
But they didn't actually show any gameplay of that, did they? It was just
No,
like it was just a bunch of talking.
yeah,
Yeah, and it felt like I listened to you and Lucas and Kyle break down Bethesda. It felt like there wasn't a lot of gameplay
hmm
with this. It was a lot of trailers and at least of the new things of the things that are just remasters. They showed some gameplay, but really, other than Final Fantasy VII, uh, there wasn't a ton of actual gameplay. It
actual
was a lot of
footage.
yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Um, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition will be out this winter. Um, which may bleed into 2020. Remember, everybody. So winter in gaming terms, that doesn't mean year end. The holiday. So it might be a delay because initially it was always clearly stated as 2019.
Hmm.
It's also coming to mobile phones though, in addition to Switch and PlayStation 4. So I don't know if they're holding it to do a concurrent release. Um, I'm Now I played the original Crystal Chronicles on Nintendo GameCube, is where that game originated from,
Okay.
and I was never a big fan of it. I was actually really let down because it was a big deal that this was the return of Square coming back to Nintendo, making a game for Nintendo, since the SNES days. And this is what we got, which was an odd top-down, almost hack and slash versus a traditional Final Fantasy experience. If you're not familiar, the premise is you're a squad of 4 people, which online multiplayer may change my views on this, but when you're playing with actual people, in your house, if you don't have 4 people available because there's no online in GameCube, it made things tough. You carried around a crystal, which is basically an item that one character would be able to hold, but if they're holding it, they can't fight or do anything to support the team. So you'd have to put it down. and this crystal would have a ring that your team would need to stay inside of that ring while doing their combat. So it's quite annoying that you'd have to like pick this up, walk, drop it, fight, pick it up, walk, drop it, fight because of this curse. They kept saying it was asthma in the trailer for this, which I don't recall that being the explanation in the original one, but I could be completely wrong because I didn't spend a ton of time with the game, but I did play it. It's an odd concept, and I was really hoping it was going to be more of a sequel versus a remake of something I don't remember a ton of people really enjoying and being exciting about. It's not a Final Fantasy VII. It's not a Final Fantasy VIII scenario where people are like, I want to play this again. I don't know anybody that's been pumped to play the original of this again.
Yeah. Well, but they've re-released every other Final Fantasy related property. So while you're waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake, you might buy this.
Fair enough. Okay. Next announcement, The Last Remnant Remastered is available right away on Switch. They announced it that day that it was available. It was released to PlayStation 4 at the end of last year, so it's just a port of a port of a port.
Isn't that what all Switch games are? Ports of ports of ports?
Apparently, but don't listen to Nintendo Shack Recap because I'm sure they're much higher up on it than I would have been, which is why I omitted myself from that podcast. This next one's intriguing, and I know Seth is excited about this one, and he's going to want to talk about it a bit here, is Square Enix Collective will publish Circuit Superstars in 2020. Top-down automobile racing game developed by Vancouver-based Original Fire Games. It was formerly known as Apex Racing League, which makes you understand why they need to get away of the name Apex, because that would probably cause some gaming confusion. But I will say, before I let Seth go, it looked pretty darn cool. As they were first describing it, I was like, I don't know how this is going to be relevant in today's gaming times. But then they showed some footage, and I was like, oh, I see what you're doing here. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, I really liked this entire Square Enix Collective kind of package that they put together, because it's not, you don't think about, at least I don't think about those games with Square, and they've really done a lot of neat things, and it's not. It reminds me a little bit of those UbiArt games that Ubisoft was looking at a few years ago. But then it came up to the Circuit Superstars, and it's not the kind of racing game that I really like. But it's that top-down perspective. There's another game on Switch, and I think on the other consoles, called Mantis Burn Racing, which is a top-down, realistic-ish kind of racing game that I had fun with for a while. So this isn't like, oh my goodness, finally racing is coming to Switch. But it's a perfect game for Switch. And it
That's true.
it looks cool and has pit stops, and it has some strategy, which is what I like about racing. Is when you add the strategy into it. So yeah, that not a ton to say, but it looks cool. It'll be a game that I'll pick up on my Switch.
Yeah, for sure. And did they? I might have missed that part. Did they say it was definitely coming to Switch, or what consoles it's coming to?
Oh, I guess I just assumed it was coming to Switch.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if they said
yes,
it.
it's PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Switch.
Okay, perfect then. I agree with you. This is one I'd probably pick up on Switch as well because it's not graphically intensive. It looks good, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a Forza or something like that where, or Gran Turismo or something like that, where it'll probably run extremely well on the Switch. And it's good to see when these bigger developers do something to help support, the indie gaming community, helping them publish games that might not other way see the light of day. If they had to do a Kickstarter or something else, we may not see this type of game coming in. Which definitely can happen. EA typically does this too, but I didn't see anything announced this E3, at least, for what EA would be doing with indie developers, where previously they had kind of put Unravel out there for everybody to see. This was Square Enix's version of doing that, which looks pretty darn cool, so it was nice to see that as well. The only other announcement that was done exclusively during this Square Enix presentation was Kingdom Hearts 3 is getting a DLC called Remind coming out this winter. It was announced a few days ago prior to E3, which is fine. I'm still playing Kingdom Hearts 3, so I haven't watched any trailer for the DLC for Kingdom Hearts simply because I don't want the story to be spoiled for me. I'm nearing the end of it. I need to do some gaming backlog cleanup. I just finished out Rage 2, so I need to go back and finish Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm near the end of it before I look at any of the DLC. But typically, Kingdom Hearts 3 for me has always kind of been about the story and the Disney levels that I didn't get to experience. I don't think this DLC is going to have any of that I haven't already run into. So for me, the Kingdom Hearts DLC was just, whatever being announced.
Yeah, I didn't. Obviously, I don't know anything about the Kingdom Hearts story or anything, so this spoiled nothing for me. But I didn't see any new Disney properties that I noticed. I did. You talked about the combat comparing to Final Fantasy VII. I did get that kind of vibe here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say though, the combat of Final Fantasy VII with having this huge sword looks a lot cooler than smacking people with a giant key. But I don't know. I'm actually really interested in maybe trying out Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't have a desire to go through the first two games. If I do that, I won't play Kingdom Hearts 3.
You won't.
So at some point, Kingdom Hearts 3 could be a purchase or at least a rental here.
Yeah, I mean they'll re-release it. They'll probably throw in any DLC that they end up doing later on for sure. It's a tough sell at Kingdom Hearts. I haven't been a big fan, but I've been a big fan since coming in. And when you play those games, like, hey, Kingdom Hearts 1 was out on PS2, and then it was like 3 years before you had Kingdom Hearts 2, and then it's been like 15 years since you have Kingdom Hearts 3. So I've had time to cleanse my palate in between. I do not know of anybody that has tried to play the remasters and then go right into 3. I know a lot of people said they would. A lot of people bought the remastered games, but I don't know of anybody that actually dedicated themselves in going through it because it's tough. And the story is extremely convoluted with Kingdom Hearts. Like Metal Gear Solid levels of this doesn't make any sense at all. Death Stranding levels of what the heck is going on, just not as dark, obviously.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, and I'm not done with Kingdom Hearts 3 yet, we don't get any resolution, even though this is quote unquote the last one they're doing too. So that just unmotivates me even more.
Yeah. The whole point, the combat looks fun and it's familiar Disney locations and things like that. That's the whole selling point for me.
Absolutely. And if you just have fun with those experiences, like, hey, I want to play in Monsters Inc. This is great. Toy Story, this is great. Big Hero 6. Like, you're right. You don't need to get as wrapped up in the story, and you can just enjoy each individual segment because they're very much disjointed and carved out. They're definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up the announcements portion. So let's kind of...
Did we talk about Dying Light 2?
Oh, no, you're right. That's not on my list. Wow.
Tisk.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that.
Dying Light 2 is coming out. There. We're done.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I'm really surprised it's not on this list. That's weird. This is a list from Kotaku, too, so shame on them. Yeah, Dying Light was shown again. The one thing I will say, though, is maybe why they omitted it was we didn't really see anything new. Okay. This was almost identical to footage we saw before. At one of the Xbox shows, I believe, is when it was first unveiled. Okay. Not at E3, but
I've not been following it at all. So this was my first. So I was like, oh, they're making another one of these. But
yeah, I want to like Dying Light, and maybe I need to go back and revisit the first one a little bit. I know Donnie's a big fan of it, and he's excited for the second one. I enjoy zombie games, but I want to engage with enemies. I don't like to run from enemies and hide, which I know Dying Light very much is, parkour zombie game. Like, yes, you can engage, but you'll get swarmed and taken down, as opposed to, sticking to the high ground and jumping around and stuff like that too. But it did look really cool. And I would imagine if you're a Dying Light fan, then you'll be interested in the sequel, but I'm not sure. Well, actually, I don't want to say I'm not sure. For me, watching that trailer didn't make me say, oh yeah, I need to play 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm not interested. And just because I don't play zombie games, really.
Right.
Other announcement that I thought was kind of cool was the Square Enix music thing. The actual little commercial for it was, I thought they were announcing a game at first,
Yeah.
and it was going to be a mobile game or something, but it wasn't, which is fine. But I just thought that was a cool announcement in the middle of this. You love a lot of our games, you love the music, and now it's all available streaming, or at
Yeah.
least all the Final Fantasy soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't know if the other stuff is, but yeah, all the Final
Um,
Fantasy stuff
thank
is there. They dropped almost a week, maybe 2 weeks ago,
Okay,
to like Amazon and Spotify and all
Spotify.
that kind of stuff. Apple Music, like it's all there, which is cool. I jumped it a little bit here and there, just kind of here to find things. It's tough if you're seeking them out because there's multiple versions of soundtracks from the same game.
Oh,
And I'm like, if I wanted to hear a specific theme, I was having a hard time finding something specific. And maybe that's just because I was searching on my phone while at work versus, on a computer or something like that. But it was pretty cool to see that entire library dropped and essentially for free for people to digest.
right.
Yeah. All right. So that was Square Enix. But let's talk a little bit about presentation format. I know you mentioned a couple notes here, and I agree with you. The whole opening with Final Fantasy VII was definitely the smart move to open with that
Oh yeah,
game specifically. But you're right, the translation back and forth was a little much. You had the poor girl there with her notebook on stage writing down what he was saying as he was going through. It wasn't even like, I'm going to say one sentence and translate. It was like, no, I'm going to give you a paragraph and she's going to regurgitate it and we're just going to stand here awkwardly, while I
yeah,
wait for your reaction as the crowd. Like that's gonna be nerve wracking even for him to say, I'm stating this great thing about this game you love, but I need to wait, 30 to 40 seconds later to see your reaction on it. Like that's
yeah.
kind of awkward.
Yeah, comparing the on-stage presentation of Final Fantasy VII to Avengers,
Hmm.
just for and again, it's our American audience biases or whatever, but they're on. They're I'm not someone who says you're in America, speak English. You're in America, speak American. Uh,
America.
I'm not like that at all, but just the energy and the crowd energy from Final Fantasy VII on stage to Marvel's Avengers on stage, where it's the Marvel game studio guy and talking about true believers and everyone's cheering and there's some banter back
Mhm.
and forth.
Yeah.
Where but I mean ultimately I don't really care about that portion. It just kind of slowed things down a little bit.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree. But other than that, I thought it was a solid presentation. I liked
oh,
kind of the screen transitions they used of like picture frames going to each thing and kind of unveiling what their total presentation was in like an art gallery format. My only negative was I think some of these announcements could have just been done in the form of a trailer montage,
yep.
like as opposed to saying, okay, here's Banner Saga, not Banner Saga. Here's the Final Fantasy thing, here's the trailer, and take that time to transition onto the next thing, reset the lights and do this whole thing and go. It's like you could have just done a montage of like 5 trailers and done that as one thing and probably shaved out, 10-15 minutes because this was a little long for what they showed us when you break it down. There's a lot of announcements, but really only maybe a handful, 4 or 5 games that were shown at any depth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could have been a little bit shorter, which I know is contradictory because everybody last year was screaming that they should have gone on longer, and now I'm saying if you just break it down just a little bit,
Well, and they spent a lot of time on the Life is Strange
Mm-hmm.
trailer thing, which I thought was the way they presented that was strange. I mean, it's a game that's out now, and they're trying to sell it, and that's fine. But not having played season 2 or all of season 1 or anything, it seemed like there were some heavy spoilery things in there.
Yes,
And
yes.
then they're playing the reactions to those heavy spoilery things, and it's just like, well, why? Who is this ad for?
Yes, that I forgot to mention that because that threw me off big time. So I haven't finished Life is Strange 2. Obviously, it's not out. It's not all out yet. So they've only released 3 episodes, and I haven't even done 3 yet.
Okay.
There was a lot of things spoiled, and it was from every episode there was stuff spoiled, which is weird because you have 2 audiences with these types of games: the ones that will play each episode as it drops, and then you have the ones that are going to wait for the whole game to come out and want to play through.
Yep.
Well, you just spoiled 30% of season 2 already in this one trailer. but there was nothing to announce. There was no, hey, the game will be finished by this date, or you could buy the disc on this date and get the whole thing. Like there was nothing there. It was, I think all they were doing was trying to pop on the positive press on the game, because episode 3 critics seemed to like finally, and they weren't big fans of episode 1 and 2. So I think maybe they were just trying to swing that public opinion, saying like, no, see, people like this. But you're right. It spoiled a lot of stuff, and there was nothing to announce. Not the date of the next episode, not the collection coming out, nothing. So it was weird.
And then the Octopath portion, which was announcing that it's coming to PC, which is fine. But I was just like, all right, everybody bought Octopath a year ago,
and we already knew it. Like that wasn't a new announcement. Like
right.
that was announced a couple months ago.
So it. And it's not even like you needed those as transitions while a different game developer came out or anything, because they were just, all the transitions were that on-screen picture frame thing.
Yep.
So I just, but I mean, overall, I mean, a game, Final Fantasy VII and Marvel's Avengers. I mean, those are 2 games that I've now pre-ordered, and partially I'm pre-ordering because my Gamers Club goes out
right.
later this year. So, and you get the $10 gift card things back from Best Buy. So, but I figure if your presentation has 2 games that I immediately pre-order,
to win,
been doing something all right. There's nothing else from E3 has made me pre-order games.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, Cyberpunk, the Keanu Reeves thing, that got me.
Keanu Reeves still do?
Yeah.
Better than Speed?
Yes. Oh yeah. I expect it's much better than Speed.
So fair enough, everybody. Thank you for listening in. Thank you, Seth, for joining me to help digest Square Enix. I believe that wraps it up for me with recap stuff. The only one out there is Nintendo Shack, which I think might have dropped as we're recording this. I'm not 100% sure. So we hope you all enjoyed our E3 coverage. We, of course, will be no doubt having some conversations on all the other shows about favorite moments overall. But this was more of the download of everything that announced in case you weren't able to keep up with it. And we'll get into more of our thoughts and opinions and probably favorites on our respective shows later on. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for telling a friend. Thanks for all that you do for us. But most importantly, as always, we ask that you never stop gaming.